Spill beer all over myself right at the beginning of my stream, no problem. No problem. Welcome to the internet, folks. So, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away yesterday, last evening, and we went through a hilarious news cycle after that. Not hilarious that she died, but hilarious in the fact that we were then subjected to half of the internet's complete brain melting down because it is the end of civilized society. And then the other half of the internet's brains melting because, they want Trump to appoint somebody in that spot. So there was a lot of hand-wringing, and there was a lot of talking about maybe he won't appoint somebody, maybe they won't vote, maybe Mitch McConnell won't allow a floor vote for a new Supreme Court justice. And then that all just kind of exploded and flew out the window as soon as Mitch McConnell released a statement like 3 hours after the woman died that said Donald Trump's nomination will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. Right? And most Americans, most people consuming any sort of news whatsoever, most people that don't live in a cave, were there when Mitch McConnell, when Barack Obama did the quintessential Barack Obama thing, which was nominate a Supreme Court justice that was just right down the middle and stood for nothing and was going to do nothing to, radically change the country or anything, and was a compromise with the Republicans to begin with. Those of us who were paying attention at the time will remember that Mitch McConnell made the argument that because we were 9 months out from a presidential election, he would not confirm nor seat any of Obama's Supreme Court nominees because he thought that the American people should get to decide. He made a very principled argument about how the American people should get to decide the next president, and the next president will then decide the next Supreme Court justice, and it's not that big a deal to leave the court empty for 8 months. Right, and this is one of those weird, like, wonky process porn stories that actually has stuck with people because the Obama people hung their hat on it. The Obama people were like, yeah, we got nothing done because, look, and tells you that story of, like, the Supreme Court guy and blah, blah, blah. So everybody's been beaten over the head by liberals for the last 3.5 years about how, well, Obama's presidency was really a failure because of all the obstruction. And here's an example. Let me tell you about Merrick Garland. Right? And the assumed logic there is that... Who? What? Okay. Anyway, so the assumed logic there is that Republicans will say something that is, them sticking to their principles, or this is, we're drawing a line in the sand. And several weeks ago, on the inaugural episode of this rant that I go on, we talked about how these people are immune to hypocrisy. It does not matter. It doesn't matter at all to them that they said one thing and they're going to do another thing. So as soon as Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, of course, Mitch McConnell releases a statement that says he's going to have a vote. Of course. And they'll make some argument about how, like, and all these other politicians are on tape talking about how they wouldn't nominate somebody. Lindsey Graham's literally on tape saying, like, you can use this against me. I would never nominate a Supreme Court justice in an election year. That's the principle we've set. Blah, 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 blah. A bunch of them have already lined up. All the like centrists and libs on Twitter and Facebook have already, like, lined up all the clips, ready to show Lindsey Graham being a hypocrite, ready to show like all these jackwagon, like, Republican senators and stuff being hypocrites, and it doesn't matter because they'll just come out and say like, well, yeah, but we're facing an unprecedented assault on our democracy with Antifa and the radical left and all the craziness, and so of course we have to step in here and go against what we said we would do, or some other dumbass reason. Because these people don't stand for anything. They're just really good at politics. They're really good at doing the things that like their base wants to do. And while you're standing there hand-wringing about it, and while all the centrists are standing there hand-wringing about it, what are you going to do about it? There were a lot of tweets going around that were like, we get the Senate back and then we pack the court. Who? Who's going to do that? What Democrat is going to do that? What Democrat is going to have any sort of like backbone enough to A, even threaten to pack the court, and B, if they got into a position where they had threatened and their bluff got called, to actually do it? Of course not. Dude, half of the country, you know, the western half of the country is on fire. And those are Democrat-controlled states, Democrat-represented states. And they're not doing jack shit about the underlying causes of that. No matter what you want to say that they are, they're just concern trolling about it. Because they don't actually care. They don't do anything. You know, like, it creates this interesting dynamic where, like, okay, yes, they're going to have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court, which is going to be horrifying, right? But the big giant flagship shit that everybody's pearl clutching about and losing their mind about, as far as like, what if they overturn Roe v. Wade? They're not gonna. They're not gonna. Roe v. Wade is one of those things that, like, if they overturned Roe v. Wade, it would hurt them, the Republicans. It would hurt them more than it would help them. And I don't mean with their voters. I just mean that, like, what the fuck are Republicans going to run on if they aren't going to constantly bitch about Roe v. Wade? If they can't make the Christian right in this country get out and vote, which is their base, with telling people about Roe v. Wade, then what are they going to lean on? They don't stand for anything. They're cannibalizing their own base. They don't stand for raising that same segment of the population. How else are they going to motivate them? They don't stand for expanding Social Security. They don't stand. In fact, they're defunding it. They don't stand for anything that matters to those people, except for all the cultural shit. And if you overturn Roe v. Wade, then it's done. And then what are you going to do to motivate those people? It's a wedge issue. It gets people out. It increases turnout. La-di-da. And so they're never going to repeal that. Now, yeah, they might go after gay marriage because none of their base is gay. And if they are, then they have some strange thing where, like, they're okay with repealing gay marriage and they make all sorts of reasons for it. Which, whatever. But, yeah, you're going to see that before you're going to see them overturn Roe v. Wade. You're going to see immigration insanity. You're going to see, like, man, I mean, yeah, so the title of this, they're like, the subtitle of this is like, how effed are we? Really effed. Like, really deeply, deeply effed. Biblically screwed. Because this creates several dynamics. Yes, everybody wants to think about, like, what if Trump nominates somebody and they fast track it and we end up with a 6-3 majority? Yes, that is worth worrying about. But the more immediate and pressing problem here is we just went to a 5-3 majority conservative court that is probably going to end up deciding the outcome of the election vis-a-vis 2000. Whereas we're going to have all this wonkiness. There's no way the election is going to go like it's supposed to, right? We're going to have all this wonkiness about, like, mail-in votes and what's the actual count, and oh my god, like, fraud here and fraud there, and what the fuck, people voting twice and all that crap. And while they're all sorting that out, there's going to be all of this, like, internal boring shit that's going on of them, like, and I mean boring in that normal people won't pay attention to it or follow it because they have lives. Of, like, this state suing to do a recount, or this party suing to do a recount, and that kind of stuff can get pushed up to the Supreme Court by our mostly Republican legislators, mostly Republican state courts, and then you're going to end up with a 5-3 majority on the Supreme Court that will decide the election in key areas of the country. What about them? Like, chat says Russia. What about it? Like, what difference does it make at this point? Like, not only did the actual left get owned, right? The actual left, like Bernie got owned, AOC, like, what's she gonna do at this point? Like, the actual left got completely owned, and we got stuck with Joe Biden, who is completely falling apart. And any sane person would just be like, fam, can you go take a nap while like a real person runs for office? And now, like, the people who claim to be the left but are just like corporate Democrat nutbags, they got owned also, because all of this is they were hoping that the process would play out. And now, like, if I'm Trump, I'm like, wait, hold on. There's a way for me to just skedaddle through this. There's a way for me to just like circumvent a couple of little systems, and I'm gonna have the Supreme Court backstopping me. Come on, man. That'd be like I mean, the dude's a con artist. That'd be like sitting at the table with Trump with $500 in your hand and being like, he's gonna figure out a way to get it from you. You know what I mean? Like, that's easy money. That's easy money for him. He's going to be like, yeah, of course I can circumvent these systems. It's light work. So you got to deal with that first. That's the first Ruth Bader Ginsburg-based problem that we have, is the election is going to be in chaos, because you're going to have the Republicans are now incentivized to just sue and countersue and argue in the courts until they get up to the Supreme Court, because ultimately the Supreme Court's conservative. So they just got to play the long game on this shit, and they got 2 months to do it. Then it is your secondary problem is that, of course, Trump and McConnell are going to get together and be like, let's nominate some nutjob lady judge that believes the earth is flat, or you know, cow farts cause autism or something, and they're going to fast track the shit out of her. Meanwhile, the Democrats are just going to go, sir, excuse me, don't you know that you're being a hypocrite? And they're going to do it anyway, because so who cares? Can you imagine being a Republican? Like, just step into a Republican shoes for a moment, specifically a Trump Republican. Step into a Republican shoes for a moment and think about, well, I voted for this party for like 30, 40 years. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, in the UK, the UK left is an actual left. The left in America is like center right globally. But anyway, you're gonna have these like Democrats that come out and say like, hey, no sir, you're being a hypocrite. You said we shouldn't do this, and now you're doing it. Shame, sir. Shame on you. When in reality, like, they don't care. They don't give a shit. Like, they'll do it anyway, because like I said, if you're a Republican voter, this is where I was at. If you're a Republican voter and you're like, I voted for this party for 20, 30 years now because they've been promising me that we were going to take over the courts, because Republicans are incredibly strategic with their vote and their politics. And then the one opportunity I have to literally seal the courts in for the next like 4 decades, and the Republican punts on it? Nah, fam. They know that that's suicide. That's suicide for them as a party to not take that opportunity, because it leaves them open to their right. You know, you'll have some sort of movement like the Tea Party or something again that'll be like, look, they failed to nominate a Supreme Court justice. Of course they're going to do it. The base would rebel if they didn't. So they're going to nominate somebody. The Democrats are going to concern troll everybody for 45 days about like norms are being violated and rules are being broken and shit. And then, so what? They'll do it anyway, and then they'll have the election, which will get decided by the Supreme Court, and then you, me, and everybody that we know is going to live in a country with a conservative Supreme Court for the next 40 years. Yeah, maybe they don't overturn Roe v. Wade, but they overturn all. They make decisions in all sorts of EPA regulations, financial regulations, campaign finance. I mean, every issue that we care about as like the left in this country, and I mean the Democrats also. They like, it's done for, bro. We are figgity fucked forever. Sorry to be the one to tell you, like, this was the one thing that couldn't happen. This was the one thing that could not happen, and it happened, and here we are. Like, that's the reality. There's basically one scenario that we needed to hold, which was Ruth Bader Ginsburg stays alive, and the election goes off with, mostly not a hitch. And that would have just, like, gotten us to a place where we could work our asses off and negotiate with a cretin like Joe Biden. But now it's literally like, oh, okay, this shit's all codified into law. No one's ever going to pack the Supreme Court. You're going to have to wait for, like, 20, 30 years before you get to a point where enough, like, actual leftists and AOC types are elected to higher office in order to provide the leverage necessary to pack the courts, and then you gotta pack the courts, and then you gotta actually start working on legislation to fix the big giant problems that we have that are directly caused by the corporations in this country. And, oh, by the way, climate change is completely irreparable, and we're gonna see catastrophic effects in 10 years. It's lost, bro. Take the black pill. It's lost. I'll be right back. I gotta check the grill. Chat says, as an outsider, we don't see what you see, but are you telling me that it's a certainty that Trump will be reelected? I don't think that it's a certainty that Trump will be reelected. I don't think that that's set in stone. My thing is, if it's close, as close as it was between him and Hillary, then the legal predicate and all of the framework has been set up at this point to where they'll just keep bumping this shit up until it gets to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court will just say, well, we have a 5-3 majority, Trump wins. And maybe not Trump wins, but we won't allow recounts. Or let's just go ahead and throw out the mail-in ballots because we're not sure how legit they are. Now, I think that dynamic is very different if Joe Biden wins by 10 million votes versus Joe Biden winning by 1 million votes. Because, and that's why I think, like, even if you live in a solid blue state, and I get it, I hate that, like, this is where we're at, but, like, even if you live in a solid blue state, you should probably vote for Joe Biden. I know that it's incredibly painful, and I understand people who aren't doing it. I'm not going to shame anybody that's not doing it. I'm just saying that, like, in my personal opinion, strategically, that is the best negotiating point that we are going to get out of this. If you care about things like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal and all that shit to save people's immiseration and the planet, arguably, then the only way to do that, and the better negotiating force to have to work with, is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, rather than Donald Trump and Mike Pence. And if you are using your vote for a strategic purpose instead of just like a moral, weird, individual test of your own morality, then strategically you would vote for Joe Biden. Sorry. Yeah, he sucks. I get it. It's bullshit. But if your vote is just like how you view yourself morally, like whether or not you're a good person, like, I'm sorry, but that's not politics. Excuse me. I'm sorry, but that's not politics. That's just you coping with the world around you because, like, you have no other means of redress with the government that rules you. Which makes sense. I mean, the government sucks and doesn't respond, and it clearly is leaving us all to die when given the opportunity. But, sorry, like, it's either this or quit, and, like, what's quitting gonna get you? You know, and, like, I get it, right? Like, vote for us and then we'll do good things. It's been 27 years of my life like that. I got it. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really make a difference now because Supreme Court implications, but, like, it's the best opportunity that we're going to get. But the takeaway is we are figgity fucked now that there's another open Supreme Court. I mean, it not to mention, right? Like, let's say, my bad. Let's say that in some, like, crazy alternative universe, right? Donald Trump decides, like, I'm not going to nominate anybody. Or McConnell says we're not going to hold the vote. Or Romney is really, like, steadfast. Romney and Lindsey Graham or something, like, team up in an insane scenario and they decide not to confirm. Okay. McCaskill, too, I think. Okay. But then Trump's just going to spin it into, like, hey, we got to have... Republicans have got to win. This is everything. This is everything. This is a Supreme Court nomination, whether you like me or whether you don't. If you're on the right and you don't want to cede your country to the radical left, crazy Antifa and the Chinese or whatever, then you have to come out and vote, and you're going to have historic Republican turnout. You'll even have a historic, moderate, centrist turnout for Trump because they'll buy into the whole, like, this is the last line of defense. It's Flight 93. So it is, it's fucked all the way down, folks. It is, we are in a deep, dark hole from whence there is very little escape. As 2020 has continued to provide, it really is incredible the depths this year is willing to go to just break the spirit of every human in society. But anyway, y'all have a good night.